Well, hello, good morning, good afternoon, whatever time of day it might be. Um, I want to talk today about the proverbial bandwagon, especially when it comes to fitness and health and staying active and things like this. Uh, you know, right now, as I'm recording this, today's November 1st, and so we're officially coming into this period of time where a lot of people are jumping back on the bandwagon. So, whatever time of year it might be that you're watching this, there's always this ebb and flow that most of us go through. We kind of get off the bandwagon and then we get back on. And so, it's a very natural thing that we go through. And I really wanted to talk about this today. It came up for me this morning because I had a new client. I've only done a small handful of sessions with them, and they just reached out this morning to cancel their session. And I wasn't actually that surprised. I kind of had a feeling that this client wasn't going to stick around. And part of it was because this client working out is new for them, okay? And so it's not part of their routine, it's not part of their habit, these kind of things. And I had this feeling that we weren't gaining quite enough traction. So I want to talk a little bit more about that story, but it just brought up so much for me because I know how hard it is to try to build the habit. I know how hard it is to make the time, right? Life is busy, all of these things. And it just really made my heart go out to this client because I think they ultimately decided to not keep working with me because they couldn't justify the cost of working with me when they weren't taking the time in the rest of their week to practice the exercises I had given them or so forth. And so they felt like they had to stop. And it just really brought up all these things for me where I was like, oh my gosh, I want to talk about this because how do we get back on the bandwagon, right? It can be so hard. There can be so much kind of negative self-talk. There can be so much in life that just kind of gets in the way. So thanks for joining me. My name is Linnea. I am a Pilates and personal trainer. I've been teaching for nearly 2 decades now. And I'm coming to you from Olympia, Washington. I have a studio here. I also do a lot of online and virtual teaching. So so let's just jump right in. Okay, so 3 things that I want to talk to you guys today around this kind of topic of jumping back on the bandwagon, right? And I guess the first one that I'll start with is just this idea that, we have to acknowledge that it takes time to build a new habit, right? If we just go in expecting to just kind of focus on doing the work itself, right? Like focusing on going into the gym 3 times a week for an hour each time, we can kind of end up self-sabotaging ourselves a little bit because we forget to acknowledge that just building the new habit is like its whole own project, right? So, so habit formation, right? Habits, routines, making the time, getting into that place where it just feels automatic, where even if you've got a super crazy busy day or something comes up in your life, that you've got this structure built into the fabric of your life where you're going to be able to maintain your fitness routine, you're going to be able to stay active, even if da 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 da, right? We want to get to that place where it's just absolutely like kind of hardwired into our brain, into our body, into our routines. And the truth is that takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of time to get to that place where it is a little bit more second nature and it is a little bit more automatic. And kind of the road from point A, which is that it's not in your routine or your schedule at all, to point B, which is where it's kind of automated and second nature and you do it a little bit even without thinking about it, we have to acknowledge that that's going to take some effort to get to that place where it's really built into the fabric of your life, okay? And just know that once you do get to that place where it's a little bit more built into the fabric of your life, it gets so much easier. It gets so much easier, okay? But at first, it's just like anything else that we do. Learning a new thing is hard. The brain kind of resists and it just kind of wants to go back to what's familiar, which if you're off the bandwagon with fitness, it means not spending any time doing that, right? So just kind of know that you have to tinker a little bit with how you think about things. You have to tinker with your behavior. You have to tinker with your schedule. You have to put some real work into building the habit itself. Okay. All right, so that's kind of my first tip, is just acknowledge that it takes time to build the habit, and that is its own project, different than even maybe doing a full workout. Okay. So then my next tip for y'all is to start small. This is a kind of related a little bit to the first one, but it's really to start small, acknowledge that it takes time. Um, you know, if kind of standard recommendation out there in the health and fitness world is to try to be active, kind of a minimum of maybe 3 hours a week, right? So for most people, that's like going to the gym 3 times a week, or going to 3 yoga classes a week, or something like that, right? But if you're going from 0 to that can feel like a lot of time and a lot to invest in. And so just start small, right? Starting small and acknowledging that that process of kind of building the habit is going to take time. Okay. And because of that, if you do allow yourself to start small, what it'll do is it'll allow you to feel successful even in your small little steps and the small wins, right? And so if we kind of get ahead of ourselves and try to think, oh, I'm just gonna, take on the world and start doing X, Y, and Z to the nth degree, and then when we don't perform to that level of our expectation, that's when we start to feel like it's too much. That's when we start to feel overwhelmed. That's when we start to feel like, oh, I'll just give up anyway because I just can't seem to actually do this. And so when you start small, it allows you to actually feel successful. And it's reminding me of this classic book called Atomic Habits by James Clear. There's also another one called Tiny Habits by BJ Fogg. Those 2 books, we're kind of coming into the new year, and those 2 books, for like the last 3 years, I've alternated trying to read one of those books every January. So it was Atomic Habits and then Tiny Habits, and then last year it was Atomic Habits again, and then this January is going to be Tiny Habits again. So, the idea is that there's real solid evidence and scientific research are behind behavioral change that shows that when we start small, it leads us to a place where the brain feels successful. We actually literally get a chemical dopamine hit, right? Where the brain is happy. It gets this reward chemical by saying, oh my gosh, I did it. I'm so great. I'm so successful. And then the brain and the body kind of wants more of that, right? Instead of saying, oh, I'm so bad. I didn't even do what I said I was going to do. And when we kind of have this internal dialogue that's really negative like that, there's actually just these automatic pathways that the body and the brain go through to try to avoid those negative situations, right? So the body will actually work hard to prevent you from doing that thing again, right? So you really need to kind of trick your brain, you need to trick your routine to a place where you start small so that you feel successful, you get those small wins, you get those little dopamine hits, those little rewards that make you feel like you actually genuinely want to do more. You want to go and do it again, right? So that is the psychology and the science behind starting small. It's not just to say, oh, baby steps, but there's actual real evidence that that is what will help you get to where you want to go faster. It can feel a little counterintuitive, right? But it's like, if you really want to go far, focus on the tiny little baby step. Don't focus on that big goal. Don't even let yourself think about it too much, right? Just focus on the little tiny step in front of you. Cool. Okay. And then here's my third tip for y'all, which is, like, what's the right way to say this? Don't be afraid of paying for accountability. Okay, this is what I was thinking about with my client today, who just kind of canceled and said they needed to stop, right? Even though we've only done a small handful of sessions so far. And I do this myself, right? And it's taken me actually a long time to learn this for myself. sometimes we think that we're paying for expertise, right? And that's certainly part of it, right? You pay to go to the chiropractor, and part of what you're paying for is their expertise and knowledge to know how to make these adjustments in your body, right? And especially though when it comes to personal training or Pilates or going to that yoga class or whatever the case may be, yes, part of what you're paying for is that expertise of having somebody really see your body and help guide you safely through, a workout and an exercise routine that's really geared towards what you need. But part of it is that, if you're paying a personal trainer to have a session every week or however long, chances are pretty good that you're going to show up for that, right? I would wager to say that there's a better chance that you would show up for a personal training session than even maybe a yoga class. If you're struggling to get back on the bandwagon and you say, I'm going to go take that yoga class, right? But maybe nobody's actually waiting for you to go be there, right? Maybe if you just decide at the last minute that you're not going to go, maybe it doesn't matter, right? So, I think changing the way you think about it so that even if you're paying for a personal trainer once a week and then you didn't do your homework all week long, and then you're like, oh shoot, maybe I'm not getting my money's worth or something like that. If you think about it, that's one way to think about it, and it can start that sort of negative thought process, like, oh, I'm wasting my money, I'm wasting my time, I'm not even doing the homework that she told me to do in between our sessions, so that means that I should wait to go see her again until I've started doing my homework regularly or something. It totally makes sense. I understand that line of thinking, but what it does is it actually kind of just delays the whole process, right? If you stop going, then you let go of your accountability, and then you just fall back into those other habits of not being on the bandwagon. I've seen it over and over and over again. I have very little hope that this client is going to all of a sudden start doing their homework really regularly and then get back on my schedule, right? Maybe 1 out of 10 times or something, right? So it's okay to pay for accountability. It's okay to seek out support and guidance and social settings and camaraderie and other people that will help hold you accountable to you showing up for yourself. That's part of what you're paying for. You are paying yourself to show up, right? So if you think about it like that, it might just sort of change the way you think about it. Like, okay, you're paying somebody so that you show up to yourself every week, at least once a week, right? And then just trust that it takes time, those small little baby steps. It takes time to get to a place where you know how to work out on your own and you know how to follow the homework advice that your personal trainer gives you, for example, right? And that's what you can work on, right? You might come to your personal trainer the next week and say, oh, I'm really struggling to do my homework every, a couple times during the week in between when I see you. Let's focus on how can I kind of work towards building that in a better way, or what resources do you have to support me in building that practice, right? Or just really being honest and being like, okay, my life is crazy. It's not even going to fit in. So please don't give me homework because it's just going to make me feel like I can't fit it in and make me feel bad, right? And so then we would say, okay, well, at least you've got this sanctioned hour in your schedule once a week, and we're just going to do our best, and maybe after another 3 or 6 months, life might change. You might be in a place where you do start to do a little bit more of your own homework at home. Right? So, basically my only point there with that third point is like, let yourself look for accountability, whether you have to pay for it, whether you look for an accountability buddy or a workout buddy or whatever it is, right? It might be the equivalent of, buying a membership, right? Like maybe there's a yoga class that you like to go to, and you might just be buying a package of 5 classes and going whenever it works for your schedule. But what would happen if you decided to switch and just pay for the monthly membership, right? You might find that you actually show up more when you invest in yourself at a deeper level, right? So just acknowledging that that's part of what you're playing with, for yourself when you decide to, pay for classes or pay for personal training or something like that. You're paying for the expertise, but you're also paying yourself to show up for yourself. And so if you think about it like that, it becomes a little bit more of a game of like, what's going to actually help you show up, right? And what's the value for yourself to show up for yourself, right? Okay, my friends, that is what I have for you today. I hope that is informative. I hope that's interesting for you. I hope that helps you show up for yourself and get back on that bandwagon or get on for the first time and stay there. So, no pressure, but just helping you reach those goals that you have for yourself. And I will see you guys next time. Bye for now.